Well, there's much to talk about. Let's get to our panel. Nicole Stott served as a flight engineer on the International Space Station and mission specialist on the U.S. Space Shuttle. She joins us from New York. And with us from Houston via Skype is Leroy Chiao. He flew 4 space missions, 3 on the Shuttle and 1 as commander of the International Space Station. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Leroy, let me start with you. If we look at that Apollo 11 mission there, the huge success of that mission, what kind of contribution did the mission make to space exploration?
Well, I think it's hard to overstate what impact the Apollo program had on the country and on the space program. Of course, it's hard to believe it was 50 years ago that Apollo 11 actually landed on the moon. I was 8 years old at the time, and it certainly inspired me to want to become an astronaut myself. But the impact is showed that we could make it to the moon, showed that things that we could do technology-wise, and we went on to build the space shuttle and run the space shuttle program for 30 years and the space station program. Both of those vehicles are pretty amazing when you think of it. They don't have necessarily the wow factor of the Apollo moon landing, but when you look at the technology and the capabilities of the space shuttle, which in my opinion is the most fantastic flying machine ever created and operated, and then you look at the space station, just such a huge engineering feat that went so well, we've really come a long ways.
Nicole, of course, you were a child when that Apollo 11 mission took place, when man landed on the moon. At what point in your life did you think that one day I'm going to be up there in space as well?
Yeah, I was 6.5 when we landed on the moon. And, you know, at the time, I knew there was something really awesome that had gone on. Very thankful to my family for sharing the experience with me and my sister by plopping us in front of the TV and then going out and looking at the moon ourselves and kind of trying to contemplate that. It was quite a while, though, before I thought that something like that could be real for me. I grew up loving everything about flying, wanted to know how things fly, thanks to my parents, and eventually discovered, you know, if you want to know how things fly, you might want to know how rocket ships fly, and had the opportunity to work at Kennedy Space Center for about 10 years. And it was while I was there that I discovered that, you know, 99.9% of an astronaut's job is not flying in space. It's down here on Earth. Probably 80% of it was already like what I was doing as a NASA engineer. And while I had always thought that, you know, astronaut was something that other special people get to do, I finally felt like I could talk to some mentors, and they encouraged me to pick up the pen and fill out the application. I'm very thankful for that.
Leroy, as you said, that mission was an inspiration to you. But what were the lessons that you learned from that mission that helped you as an astronaut?
Let's see. Well, specifically, I think it was mostly the inspiration, the fact that we landed not just one mission, but many missions on the moon, and we had multiple astronauts that got a chance to walk on the moon. I think it was that inspiration that really got me going. I studied engineering because I was always interested in technical things, and that qualified me to apply. So as far as lessons from the Apollo missions, I think just the precision, the operations, the importance of operations and thinking operationally, those would be the kind of the big picture lessons that I took away.
And Nicole, what were the lessons that you learned that helped you?
Well, I echo what Leroy said for sure, and I think that, you know, kind of overlying all of it was this idea that we can, you know, we can achieve really complex things. We can do what seems like the impossible, and I think that's what the moon landings and watching that whole program did for me as I was growing up, was realize that, wow, when we give ourselves a challenging goal and decide to do it for the right reason, we can make very impressive things happen. And that's a good thing to have, you know, to, as Leroy says, to inspire you to take on challenges yourself.
And Nicole, one other quick question, and that is, you were among few women who've been on the International Space Station. You served there as a flight engineer. What was that experience like, and did you, or did the men on the space station have to make adjustments when you were there?
No, I hope nobody made adjustments while I was there. I think that, you know, my whole career with NASA, I am so thankful. I think if you look at NASA and just the progression over time, really very progressive when it comes to, you know, having women as part of the whole team. And I loved my time in space. It was awesome. I never thought about it like I was the only woman there. And I think that's a good thing, that you can go into something like that, you can work with a crew, and you can never feel like somebody's looking at you like, are you a boy or a girl when you're doing this? Because the rocket ship doesn't care if you're a boy or girl.
Leroy, as we heard in our report there, space exploration has now gone international. There's a number of countries, in addition to the United States and Russia, that have adopted space programs. We have countries in Europe, of course, India, Israel, China joining the space exploration project as well. China recently landed a rover which was on the dark side of the moon, and will send a craft to Mars. That could take place next year. Do you think we're in for a golden age or golden era of space exploration?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I'm encouraged by seeing more countries get involved. And China, of course, became only the third nation able to launch astronauts in space in 2003. And as you pointed out earlier this year, they did launch a rover, the first country to do so, on the far side of the moon. And almost equally as impressive, they were able to fly a HALO relay satellite to the second Lagrange point to be able to communicate with that rover. So China's showing a high level of sophistication, and I think the part that you haven't touched on yet is the commercial part. We've got some very exciting companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, and they're very different companies. They want to explore, they want to build infrastructure, and this is, I think that's where the new golden age is going to come from.
Nicole, Leroy there just mentioned the private companies, commercial companies that are entering the space exploration projects as well. Now we have Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos from Amazon. They're all getting involved in that. What do you make of that?
I think it's wonderful, and I love that, where we are right now with this as we transition is, this whole public-private partnership, I think, is really going to set us off well to make these new missions successful. NASA has always been working with private companies, but now you've got these companies where they're going to own the rocket, and they're going to have the flexibility to do other kinds of missions with them as well, in addition to supporting NASA activities. And I think that that's the kind of thing we have to do. We have to encourage in order to really expand our presence, not just in low Earth orbit, but back on the moon, hopefully in a permanent way, and on to Mars and other places.
Nicole Stott, Leroy Chiao, thanks to both of you for talking with us.